Most people think working the night shift is dangerous because it's dark. They're wrong. The dangerous part is how predictable you become. You park in the same spot, take your break at the same time, lock the same doors, walk the same route, night after night. And if someone decides to watch long enough, they'll know exactly where you'll be. Tonight, these are 3 true stories from people who discovered that someone had been learning their routine long before they realized they were being watched. My name's Owen. I was 26 when this happened. Back then, I worked alone on the overnight shift at a small convenience store outside Nashville, Tennessee. The store sat beside a quiet state highway. After midnight, business almost disappeared. Most customers were truck drivers grabbing coffee or people filling up before getting back on the road. Between 1 and 4 in the morning, I'd sometimes go 20 minutes without seeing anyone. It was boring, but I liked it. The routine never changed. At 12:45, I'd refill the coffee station. Around 1:30, I'd stock the drinks. At 2:15, I'd empty the trash outside. And just before sunrise, I'd mop the front entrance. After almost a year, I could probably do the whole shift without looking at a clock. That's why I noticed him. The first night, he walked in around 1:20. He wasn't dressed strangely. No hoodie, no sunglasses, just jeans, a dark jacket, and a baseball cap. He slowly walked every aisle, never picked anything up, never checked prices, never looked at his phone. After about 5 minutes, he walked back out. I barely remembered him until he came back the next night. Same time, same clothes, same slow walk around the store. Again, he bought nothing. I joked about it with my manager the next morning. Maybe he's trying to decide what snack to commit to. She laughed. At 1 in the morning? Neither of us thought much about it, but by the end of that week, he had shown up 5 nights in a row, always within a few minutes of 1:20, always leaving empty-handed. One night, I decided to see what he was actually looking at. Instead of stocking shelves while he wandered around, I stayed behind the register. I watched him. He barely looked at the products. Instead, his eyes followed me. Every time I walked somewhere, he looked up. If I stopped, he stopped. When I bent down to organize a lower shelf, I caught him watching from the end of the aisle. The moment I looked at him directly, he turned away. That was the first time I felt uncomfortable. The next evening, he surprised me. I was wiping down the coffee station when he quietly walked up beside the counter. He smiled politely. "You always make fresh coffee around this time?" It sounded like casual conversation. I shrugged. "Pretty much." He nodded. "It smells better than the gas station across the highway." Then he walked away. He didn't buy coffee. He didn't buy anything. He just left. That conversation stayed with me longer than it should have, because he hadn't asked what time we made coffee. He already knew. A few nights later, I changed my routine. Instead of cleaning the coffee station first, I started stocking the refrigerated drinks. When he came in, he walked straight to the coffee area. He stood there for a few seconds, looked around, then slowly turned until he found me on the other side of the store. It was the first time I'd seen genuine confusion on his face, just for a second. Then he smiled again and left. I didn't mention it to anyone. I kept telling myself I was reading too much into it. People are creatures of habit. Maybe he was too. Then came Friday. Around 2:10, I grabbed the trash bags and headed outside. It took less than 3 minutes to empty the bins beside the gas pumps. As I walked back, I noticed a car parked across the road. Its headlights were off. The engine was running. I couldn't make out the driver's face, but I could see someone sitting behind the wheel, watching the store, watching the employee entrance. The moment I looked toward the car, it slowly pulled away. I told myself it was probably nothing until the next night. The same car, the same spot, the same time. This time, I didn't go outside. Instead, I watched from inside the store. The car stayed there for almost 15 minutes. Then, the front door opened. It was him. Same jacket, same calm expression. He walked one slow lap around the store, then stopped beside the refrigerated drinks. Without looking at me, he quietly said, "You didn't take the trash out tonight." Every hair on my arm stood up. I hadn't told anyone I'd changed my routine. I hadn't even gone outside. I looked at him. He smiled. Not a friendly smile, the kind someone gives when they already know they're right. Then he walked out. I locked the front door for a moment and called my manager. She told me to write down everything I remembered. The time, the car, his description, everything. The following night, an off-duty sheriff's deputy parked his patrol vehicle behind the store before my shift even started. We didn't tell anyone. At exactly 1:19, the same sedan slowed as it approached the parking lot. It never turned in. It kept driving. About a minute later, the man walked past the front windows on foot. He looked inside, saw the patrol vehicle, stopped, then quietly turned around and disappeared into the darkness beside the highway. The deputy searched the surrounding area for nearly 40 minutes. He never found him. A week later, detectives asked me to look through several reports from nearby convenience stores. 3 other overnight clerks had described the same man, same age, same jacket, same habit of visiting multiple nights without buying a single thing. One clerk told police he kept asking harmless questions: what time they closed, who worked weekends, when deliveries arrived. Another remembered him asking which employee usually locked the back door. None of the stores had been robbed. No one had been attacked. Police never proved he committed a crime, but every manager in our district received the same advice. If someone keeps learning your routine, treat that as the warning. I transferred to a daytime shift 2 months later. Even now, if a customer walks through a store without buying anything, I don't automatically think they're shopping. Sometimes, I wonder what they're trying to learn. My name's Mason. I was 29 when this happened. For almost a year, I worked the overnight inventory shift at a frozen food distribution warehouse outside Omaha, Nebraska. If you've never been inside one of those places after midnight, it's hard to explain how strange they feel. The building never sleeps. Forklifts beep somewhere in the distance. Loading docks slam shut every few minutes. Industrial fans hum constantly. Yet somehow, you still feel completely alone. Our overnight crew had fewer than 15 people, covering a warehouse that stretched for hundreds of thousands of square feet. Everyone stayed in their own department. You could go an entire shift without speaking to anyone. That was normal. You learned people's routines without even trying. Who took smoke breaks every hour? Who drank 3 energy drinks before sunrise? Who always complained about the cold? After a while, you stopped noticing faces, until one face kept appearing everywhere. The first time I saw him, he was standing beside receiving door 4. Nothing about him looked unusual. Dark blue warehouse uniform, reflective vest, steel-toe boots, gray work gloves. He looked exactly like everyone else. As I walked by, he smiled. "Morning." I nodded. "Morning." That should have been the end of it. Looking back, I wish it had been. The next night, I saw him again. Same relaxed smile,
Same calm voice, same gray gloves. Only this time, I noticed something I hadn't before. He wasn't carrying anything. No handheld scanner, no radio clipped to his belt, no paperwork, no pallet jack, nothing. Every overnight employee carried something. He didn't. I remember watching him disappear through an aisle and thinking, that's strange. Then I immediately talked myself out of it. The warehouse hired temporary workers all the time. Maybe he was still training. Maybe someone else had his equipment. There was always a logical explanation, or at least, that's what I kept telling myself. 2 nights later, I ran into him again near the freezer entrance. He looked at the digital clock hanging above the doorway, then back at me. "Freezer 3 tonight?" I laughed. "Yeah. Inventory?" "Unfortunately." He smiled. "I don't miss counting frozen pallets." It sounded so normal, like the kind of conversation you'd have with someone you'd worked beside for months. Before I could ask his name, a forklift rounded the corner between us. By the time it passed, he was gone. Not walking away, gone. I looked down both aisles. Nothing. There was nowhere he could have disappeared that quickly. I actually stood there for a few seconds, wondering if I'd somehow missed him turning another corner. Eventually, I shrugged it off and got back to work. Looking back now, that was probably the first mistake I made. I stopped questioning things too early. Around 1:45 that same night, I realized my inventory paperwork was missing. I checked the pallet I'd just counted. Nothing. I checked under the shrink wrap. Nothing. I even walked back through the previous aisle. Still nothing. I was already annoyed because losing those sheets meant recounting everything. Then I heard someone behind me. "You looking for this?" I turned. It was him, holding my paperwork. He smiled the same way he always did. Friendly, relaxed, like we'd known each other forever. I let out a relieved laugh. "Where'd you find it?" He pointed toward the end of the aisle, near the loading doors. I frowned. "That's impossible. I haven't been over there." For the first time, his smile faded, only for a second. Then it came back. "You'd be surprised what people forget." He handed me the paperwork. His gloves were freezing cold. Not cold because of the warehouse. Cold enough that I actually looked down at my own hand after taking the papers. I started to say thanks, but he was already walking away. Not in a hurry, just leaving. Something about that conversation stayed with me for the rest of the night. Not because it was threatening, because it felt rehearsed. Like he'd already expected exactly what I was going to say. The following Friday, I took my lunch break around 2:30. The break room was completely empty. I heated up leftovers in the microwave and sat near the vending machines. About a minute later, the door opened. He walked in. No food, no coffee. He simply sat across from me. For several seconds, neither of us said anything. Then he looked toward my employee badge lying on the table. "Mason." I looked up. "I never told you my name." He didn't answer immediately. Instead, he glanced toward the warehouse floor through the small window in the break room door. Then he quietly smiled. I've heard people say it. Maybe he had. That explanation made perfect sense. So why did I suddenly lose my appetite? I couldn't stop thinking about that conversation. Not because he knew my name. Employee badges make that easy. It was the way he'd answered. Too calm, too practiced, like he'd already expected the question. I finished my break and headed toward freezer 3. The temperature dropped the moment the heavy insulated door closed behind me. The room was painfully cold. Every breath turned white. The only sounds were the cooling fans overhead and the occasional beep from my scanner. Around 3:10 a.m., I reached the last aisle on my inventory list. As I scanned another pallet, I heard footsteps. Not loud, just slow, deliberate footsteps crunching across the frozen concrete. I looked up. There he was, standing at the opposite end of the aisle, watching me. For a second, neither of us moved. Then he raised one hand, not waving, just pointing toward a pallet behind me. "You missed one." I turned instinctively. There really was another pallet hidden behind a stack of boxes. When I looked back, he was already walking away. I hurried after him. The aisle led straight into a wide-open loading area. There was nowhere to hide, no side doors, no equipment moving, nothing. He was gone. That was the moment something changed. Until then, I'd been trying to explain everything away.
Now, I couldn't. I finished the count as quickly as I could and headed straight to my supervisor. He noticed something was wrong before I even spoke. "You look pale." I told him everything. The conversations, the missing paperwork, the freezer aisle, the gray gloves. He listened without interrupting. When I finished, he asked one question. "What department does he work in?" "I don't know." "You've been talking to him all week and you don't know his name?" That hit me harder than I expected. He was right. I'd spoken to this man several times, but somehow I'd never actually asked who he was or where he worked. My supervisor stood up. "Come with me." We walked into the HR office. He opened the employee roster for the overnight shift. "Point him out." I studied every photo. Shipping, receiving, maintenance, forklift operators, sanitation, nothing. "He isn't here." My supervisor frowned. "Maybe he's a contractor." We checked those too. Still nothing. By then, the warehouse manager had joined us. He asked me to describe the man from memory. I mentioned the gloves, the vest, the short brown hair, the calm voice. The manager didn't say anything. He simply opened an archived employee file. A photo appeared. I felt my stomach drop. "That's him." The manager leaned back in his chair. "His name was Nathan. He worked here last year." I nodded. "So, where is he now?" The room went quiet. Finally, my supervisor answered. "He doesn't. He was terminated 11 months ago." I laughed. Not because it was funny, because I honestly thought they were messing with me. "I've talked to him 4 times this week." "No," my supervisor said quietly. "You talked to someone, but it shouldn't have been him." By sunrise, security had reviewed every entrance into the warehouse, every employee badge, every truck arrival, every visitor log. Nothing. No unauthorized badge had been used. No emergency exit had been opened. No fence damage. No missing uniforms. Nothing explained how anyone matching his description had entered the building. The company even interviewed the overnight crew. Not one person remembered seeing the man, except me. For the next 2 weeks, management assigned another employee to walk inventory with me. Nothing unusual happened. No conversations, no missing paperwork, no gray gloves. Eventually, everyone assumed whoever I'd seen had simply slipped in somehow and never returned. Maybe that's exactly what happened. I honestly hope it is. But there's one detail I never found an explanation for. About a month later, HR called me into the office. They'd been cleaning out old lockers before installing new ones. Inside one locker, they found a folded inventory sheet. It wasn't old. It wasn't dusty. It had been printed the same night I'd lost my paperwork. Across the top, someone had written one sentence in black marker. "You finally noticed me." No fingerprints, no handwriting match, no camera footage showing who left it there. The locker had officially been empty for almost a year. I transferred to the day shift not long after. People always ask me why.
I usually tell them I got tired of working nights. That's easier than telling the truth. The truth is, I still don't know whether I spent a week talking to a former employee or to someone who had spent days inside that warehouse pretending to belong there. Either possibility is enough to keep me from ever working another overnight shift.
My name's Rachel. 4 years ago, I worked the overnight cleaning shift at a private medical office building outside Phoenix, Arizona. It wasn't a hospital, just 4 floors of medical offices, dentists, eye clinics, physical therapists, insurance offices. By 8 every evening, the building emptied out. By 10, it belonged to me. I worked alone. My routine never changed. Clock in, disable the alarm, grab my cleaning cart, start on the 4th floor, work my way down. It sounds boring. Honestly, it usually was. That's why I noticed every tiny thing that didn't belong. Looking back, the first warning didn't seem important at all. It was a chair. Every office had the same visitor chair sitting neatly in front of the doctor's desk. One Tuesday night, I finished cleaning suite 407. Before leaving, I accidentally bumped the chair with my vacuum. It ended up facing the window instead of the desk. I almost fixed it. Then I thought, the doctor will move it tomorrow anyway. I locked the office, finished the rest of the hallway. About 30 minutes later, I walked past suite 407 again. Something made me stop. The chair, it was facing the desk again, exactly the way it had been before. I stood there for several seconds. Maybe I'd remembered it wrong. That happens when you're tired. I unlocked the office. Everything looked perfectly normal. I actually laughed at myself. You need more sleep. I locked the door again and finished the floor. The next night, I decided to test my memory. Inside suite 412, I left a pen standing upright on the receptionist's desk, not lying down, standing vertically inside a roll of tape, something impossible to miss. Then I locked the office. An hour later, I came back. The pen was gone, not fallen over, gone. I searched the entire office. Nothing. I finally found it inside the supply cabinet, lying neatly beside a box of gloves. I didn't remember putting it there. Maybe I had. Maybe I was simply exhausted. I kept trying to explain everything. That's what scares me now. Not the strange things, the number of excuses I made for them. Thursday night, I tried something different. This time, I left a small yellow sticky note under the keyboard in suite 405. I wrote one sentence: "If someone finds this, throw it away." No one should have seen it. The keyboard covered almost the entire note. I finished cleaning the floor, locked every office, moved downstairs. About 45 minutes later, I came back because I'd forgotten my spray bottle. The sticky note was sitting in the middle of the receptionist's desk, folded neatly. I opened it. My handwriting was still there, but someone had written another sentence underneath it: "You forgot your spray bottle." I didn't move. I couldn't. My eyes immediately drifted toward the hallway, empty, completely silent. Then I heard something. Not footsteps, not a door, just the soft squeak of a cleaning cart wheel somewhere on the floor above me. I slowly stepped into the hallway. Hello? No answer. I grabbed my radio. "Security, this is Rachel." No response. I looked down at the radio. The battery indicator was flashing red. It had been fully charged when my shift started. For the first time since taking that job, I stopped thinking about finishing my checklist. I started thinking about getting out of the building. I tried calling security again. Nothing. Just static. At first, I blamed the radio. Old batteries, concrete walls, bad signal. There had to be a simple explanation. I picked up my cleaning cart and headed toward the stairwell. I wasn't running, not yet. I just wanted to finish the floor and leave. As I reached Suite 401, I noticed something that immediately stopped me. The door was unlocked. I was absolutely certain I'd locked it. I even remember hearing the latch click. I slowly pushed the door open. Everything inside looked normal. The lights were off. The desk was clean. The trash can was empty. Then I noticed my vacuum. It wasn't where I'd left it. Someone else had rolled it neatly into the corner of the room. The power cord had even been wrapped around the handle. I never wrapped the cord until the end of my shift. Someone else had done it. I stepped backward into the hallway. For the first time all night, my hands started shaking. I pulled out my phone. No signal. That wasn't completely unusual. Certain parts of the building had poor reception, but it couldn't have happened at a worse time. I decided I was done. The cleaning could wait until morning. As I pushed my cart toward the elevator, I heard the sound again. One wheel. A slow, uneven squeak. Not close, but definitely on my floor. I froze. The sound stopped. I waited. Nothing. I started walking again. 3 seconds later, the squeak returned. One pull, then silence. Almost as if whoever was moving had stopped every time I stopped. I left my cart where it was. I didn't care anymore. I walked quickly toward the elevator, pressed the button. Nothing. I pressed it again. Still nothing. The display was blank. Maintenance had shut the elevators down for a scheduled inspection. I'd completely forgotten. The only way out was the stairwell. I turned toward the fire door. Just before I reached it, I heard a man's voice behind me, calm, quiet, almost conversational. "You missed one." I spun around. The hallway was empty. Every office door was closed. The lights buzzed overhead. Nothing moved. I didn't wait to investigate. I pushed through the stairwell door and practically ran down 3 flights. When I reached the lobby, I finally found the security guard. He was standing outside talking with a delivery driver. The moment he saw me, he asked, "Everything okay?" I must have looked terrified. I explained everything: the notes, the moved vacuum, the voice, the squeaking wheel. Without saying much, he called another guard. The 3 of us searched every floor, every office, every storage room, every restroom. Nothing. As we finished checking the 4th floor, one of the guards suddenly stopped. "Rachel." He pointed toward my cleaning cart. Hanging from the handle was a fresh, yellow sticky note. None of us had noticed it before. I slowly peeled it off. There were only 6 words written in black ink. "Next time, start downstairs again." Nobody spoke, because only one person knew I'd changed my cleaning route that week. Me. I hadn't written it down. I hadn't told my supervisor. I hadn't even mentioned it during my phone call. The building manager contacted police the following morning. They interviewed former maintenance workers, reviewed contractor records, and inspected every master key issued over the previous year. Eventually, they found something. A former contractor had failed to return one building key after finishing a renovation project months earlier. He insisted he'd lost it. Police couldn't prove otherwise. No evidence placed him inside the building. No fingerprints matched the notes. The investigation quietly ended. I resigned less than a week later. People still ask why I left such an easy job. I usually tell them the overnight hours weren't for me. That's easier than explaining the real reason. Because the thing that still bothers me isn't the notes, or the voice, or even the moved vacuum. It's the last message. Whoever left it didn't just know where I had been. They knew I'd changed my routine before anyone else did. And if someone can predict where you'll be, they can also predict the exact moment you'll think you're completely alone.
If you've ever worked alone at night and experienced something you still can't explain, leave your story in the comments. I read every one, and your story could be featured in a future Dark Signal episode. If you enjoy realistic psychological horror based on everyday situations, subscribe to Dark Signal so you don't miss the next story. Until next time, stay aware and stay safe.